strangers showed up to your home, what would you do? Hi, Coyotes. Want to watch a movie? Before we dive into it, I know. My hair is different. It'll grow back. I pinky promise it'll come back, guys. Don't worry. So since we're still in the spooky month of October, I decided we would look at a thriller movie that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. Something that I love to do whenever I see an actor in something is to immediately research them and see what other projects they've done. I know. I'm the worst to watch movies with. But while I was researching for my Riverdale video, I saw that Camila Mendes was in this movie called Coyote Lake. And this film is one that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about online. It was a very small independent film that seems to have gone straight to streaming services instead of having a theatrical release. And I remember watching this movie in college and having a vague memory that it was interesting to watch, so I decided, let's look at it today and talk about it. Of course, this movie goes with your typical horror movie warnings. People are gonna die. It happens. I won't show any of it because just take care of yourselves. You guys know yourselves better than I do, so let's just dive into this movie. So we start this film by establishing Teresa and her daughter Esther that run this B&B that is located on the border between Mexico and Texas in a pretty isolated area. These two are sharing a meal with a renter who is giving off the worst red flags. He tells them that he is a tour guide, but is actually something called a coyote. Don't worry, he's not an animal in disguise. For those of you who don't know, a coyote is defined by someone who is a human trafficker who exploits migrants desperate to get across the border and smuggles them for a fee. So, not the best dude. But that doesn't matter, because he gets drugged by this duo and robbed of all of his possessions. Then what they do is they tie him up in a bag, then put a cement brick with him, and he takes a swim permanently in a lake. And Teresa through this movie is very, very quick to justify all of these murders by saying that they are killing bad people and they are killing people who prey on victims, so it's okay. Something else that's established pretty early on in this movie is that Teresa is wildly overprotective of Esther, to the point where Esther is homeschooled, wears boyish clothes, and she can't speak Spanish like her mother can, so she can't communicate with a lot of the guests who come to their B&B. The only other person that Esther can be around is Dirk, who is a hired hand on their house/B&B grounds to help maintain the place. As we move through this film, we see that another victim ends up being drugged, but before they can be disposed in the lake, two strangers show up at the house and demand that Esther and Teresa help this man named Ignacio. Ignacio has a gunshot wound, and there's a younger man with him named Paco who is trying to get help. These men essentially hold Esther and Teresa hostage until Ignacio gets better. But to complicate this, Esther and Paco start falling in love. Teresa has this overwhelming need to keep protecting their secret operation and to keep Esther where she is, but because Esther is spending so much time with Paco, she's slowly starting to be exposed to what the world is really like. Teresa is upset and she goes to confront Ignacio to tell him to leave, but in doing this, she finds out that one of her previous victims was Ignacio's father because she kept his watch. And this is all starting to become a mess, so she kills Ignacio, and then, of course, Esther and Paco come back to the house, and Teresa has to shoot Paco, killing him as well. All because she stole Ignacio's dad's watch and needed to cover this up. And it's this incredibly messy situation because you see that she's trying to protect her daughter from the world, but is going about it in the worst way possible. Esther is obviously devastated by this, but instead of comforting her, her mom says that he deserved to die because he was a bad man. However, this event has caused something to snap inside of Esther, and so during breakfast the next morning, she tries to confront her mom and tell her that they need to end their operations. However, Teresa then starts to fight back and says that they can't cease their operations because they're saving bad people and saving their souls and that they're doing the right thing. She also brings up that they need to keep killing these people so that they have enough money to live comfortable lives, and she lashes out at Esther for planning to abandon her. And the final moments between these two is Teresa sitting down at breakfast with Esther and asking if Esther truly loves her, and Esther responding with, she did. At that, Teresa keels over and it's revealed that Esther drugged her. And as Esther goes to collect the money from her mom's previous killing, she finds that not only was her mom keeping a list of individuals they had killed, but she was also hiding enough money for them to leave. This film ends with Esther dumping her mom's body into the lake and looking off kind of peacefully with this newfound sense of freedom, and thus ends Coyote Lake. That was a pretty quick synopsis, but this film is very short compared to other blockbuster film lengths, and they kind of stay in the same location the entire time, so it's a shorter description. You're welcome. Anyway, let's talk about the numbers from this movie because I think it's really interesting to look at. Depending on which review service you give more credibility to, you will get wildly different responses to this film. For example, on IMDb, it's got a 5.4 out of 10 with 1.3 thousand reviews and a Metascore of 40. A lot of people criticize this film for being slow and dragging on, and it's interesting that that is a criticism when this film is only 93 minutes. But we change platforms to Rotten Tomatoes, and it's got an 83% on the tomato meter and an audience score of 90% with over 100 reviews. And on Rotten Tomatoes, the reviews are, broadly speaking, pretty positive. These reviews typically are praising the director for her work and her storytelling, and the actors for doing a great job with the script. So it really is a mixed bag depending on where you look. And since this was not a box office release, but it got released to streaming services, it's even harder to find numbers on how successful this film was. It's a very small, independent film made and directed by one person, so we have to approach a review with that lens in mind. There's no corporation or media conglomerate that is backing this film. This is just one person with a dream and a story in their mind. And I think while watching this, I would have to agree with the comments, as mixed as they were. Sure, it's a little slow in parts, but I think it was fascinating watching Camila Mendes in this film. Seeing her in a role that's outside of Riverdale really helps nail in the fact that she is a good actor. It's just she needs to be given material that she can work with. And her performance really makes you empathize with Esther, and while yes, Esther was helping with these killings, she is a victim of her mom and the environment that she was in. And I really liked watching her relationship with Paco evolve because it kind of, for the first time in Esther's life, really challenged what was happening around her and made her face the question of what makes you happy. Now, I think in terms of this being a thriller movie, this is a pretty tame movie. There are no real big jump scares, and the tension stays about the same through the entire film. But I think the thing that draws me more to it is the moral questions that it asks. The commentary around protecting your child from the world through Teresa's lens is rather interesting. Sure, it came from selfish motivations, but it's an interesting question that's being brought up. Teresa is so transfixed on sheltering her daughter from the world and limiting her experience with real people that she's not allowed to challenge herself and grow as an individual. Esther is just stunted. And as adults, I think that as we experience the world, we kind of understand how it is an awful place at times, but you see Teresa projecting these fears onto her daughter instead of allowing her daughter to experience life. Teresa treats every single person in this movie like they are enemy number one, and their existence alone is threatening her daughter. And then there's this added layer of moral questioning where if Esther and Teresa are truly killing bad people, what allows them to have that moral high ground? I think it's this nuanced conversation of if these people are truly evil, they shouldn't be allowed to keep going out and being able to hurt people, but is any person in this world able to stand and say who lives and dies, and who can say that with certainty? I think it's this really interesting question that even I, as I grow older, wrestle with. It is a really interesting question because obviously there are horrible people in this world, but shouldn't we prioritize reformation instead of just killing people. Regardless, I'll leave you all with that thought experiment. And if you made it to the end of this video, dude, thank you so much. If you're interested in watching this movie, it's free on Tubi. That's a streaming platform, I guess, but it's free to watch, and I'm curious to know what you all think of this movie. And because this video is so short, I have a little treat for you all. Another video, a bonus video this week that'll be uploaded. It'll be uploaded not long after this one. I'll send a little smooch your way, and I'll see you next time.